3, 2, 1.
1.
Christ, that was
Thank you.
quick. Well, yeah, we'll include that in the final cut, definitely. Now, probably there'll be the video hook or something. Okay, let's start rolling.
I'm sure on my end, so,
Yeah. Welcome back, viewers, to the lovely Briefcase Podcast. Today, I am here with Thomas Baldock, a regular guest of ours, and also a slightly irregular guest, what some may call a pub champion. We are here today with Jay Chan from the Conservative Party.
Hello, how are you, Artin? How are you, Thomas?
I am doing very well.
I'm good myself.
Thomas is always chill.
Once again to chat things through, Great to be here again.
Yeah, so if you've ever worried that your local pub may be closing down, if you've ever worried that British pub culture is on the decline, then Jay's essentially the man for you. He's been called the pub champion. People are shouting pub champion from the roofs of Westminster, and he's a Conservative politician, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe he doesn't want to refer to himself as a politician, but he certainly is a campaigner. And
I'm
that's not a politician yet. Okay, but he's certainly a campaigner, and
I'm drunk enough to be.
So yeah, he's quite a good voice, and we will obviously link all his socials and campaign details in the description for everybody to check out. But I think let's get straight into it. What drives you politically? Why are you doing all this?
Well, first of all, the main reason is autism, and the second reason, for my pub campaign, I really like British pub. After the general election, my MP, my former boss, lost his seat, and I need to find a new purpose for my life, and I need to find a new job. Shocker, and. So I have found my job as someone working in a warehouse. I now resign and I now work as an interpreter. But at the time, I was very meaningless in life. I found a job, and I'm miserable now. So I want to do something that is meaningful, that is not too away from my focus on policies, and on jobs that I can use my social media skills into making some positive change. Then I realized my love of beer. And during my time with Marco Longhi, my former boss, we had sorted extensively the issues after the Crooked House have been broken down and burned down as well, unlawfully. And I have did extensive research in this office, both for Marco and for our team, to look more into the issues of not just Cricket House, but many other pubs that are closed down or even demolished. Similar to that, and we want to avoid that from happening.
Okay.
So I realized that is a platform I want to work on, and therefore I decided, as I'm very good at Downing Pines and I really like them, perhaps I should use that as a way to enter that, raise awareness into that bit of policies.
So was the origin of the idea just a pub closing down, or what were you doing where you got this idea?
Well, I would say is the idea is coming from the Crooked House after it got burnt down. It's really sad learning about the Crooked House myself, and even going into places like libraries to research that, not just for myself, but also for my constituency office when I was working there. It filled me with sadness. I want to do something that can prevent that from ever happening. And after I lost my political job, after my party lost the general election, and I think I personally should do something that can still use my influence, still use my skills onto changing something that I would find meaningful. Provided at the time my job was completely meaningless and quite tiring, I want to find something that cheers me up and drive me forward.
Nice, very nice.
Completely fair enough. I mean, let's go from Downing Pints to Downing Street. Thank you very much. What do your colleagues make of your actions?
Well, my colleagues are here, and you'll later see him later on. And really, my fellow party members have watched my videos. The members of different parties watching my videos, and my former colleagues really like them. And I think I get a bit of a viewership going on. They might like my content, they might not like, but I think I think my campaign is quite getting the momentum going in the political field, and especially for young people in politics, or caring about politics, or just young people overall. They've been caring, watching pretty much about my videos and knowing more about pubs. More importantly,
Nice.
Yeah.
is it working?
Yeah.
Yeah, everything's
But it's
fine.
all about spreading the wider message, isn't it? I mean, one does on surface level assume what's the correlation between, necking pints down, sort of sitting through boring meetings in government, I mean, the two things, they tend to not mix. But in this case, you've done so very effectively, I must admit. You've got your professional life, your personal life. It's wonderful. You just got everything in the balance, it seems.
Thank you very much. I doubt it's in balance because you lose them when you drink too much.
Yeah, just water and a couple of paracetamol before you head into Parliament.
Perhaps yes. I want to have more more people having beer in the Parliament as well. But that's
one will make for a much better flow of conversation.
Politicians who perhaps make better decisions than the sober politicians.
Precisely. You think with your heart, after a couple of pints, don't you? That's really sort of the way they should be going. I think, it's very much already comparable to that of pub chat. So I reckon that would really, sort of bring the roof off.
Yes, I totally agree with you. We should get more drunk politicians, less sober politicians.
Absolutely, yes. Our new campaign for next year, 2026.
Yeah. There we go.
You've outlined a 5-pint policy. What is that?
Well, my 5-pint policy comes last year, before the last budget, and these policies are including: one, it is cutting VAT on the food and drinks that pubs are selling. So a glass of Coke would be charged VAT in the pub and will not be charged VAT on off-sale. A plate of full English will be charged 20% VAT in the pub and will not be charged if the same ingredients or even the same plate of hot food is being served in the supermarket. Therefore, it comes to putting these unfair strains onto pubs when they're serving the same thing, but being charged more. The second policy is to reduce alcohol duty, which is to ensure, because pubs are only accountable for a smaller percentage of harmful drinking. As we would all know, if you are too drunk, the pub bartenders actually can't serve you anymore. But if you're at home and you're already being very drunk, you can always crack open a few more cans and pour yourself a few more vodka. That's where the A&E appointments comes from. The A&E strains goes to. That's where the health problems goes to, and all these sadly goes to off-sale and in people's private home and not pubs. Therefore, we should reduce the alcohol duties being paid by pubs by a certain percentage in order to be fair to them, as well as I want to have. I'm against in this 5-pint policy policies that was proposed by the government, including banning smoking in pubs, in changing the pint size. That will only cause more confusion, as well as the reduction of customers. I'm also very concerned about the government's plan to prohibit so-called harassment without defining them. Which might mean any slightly offensive or a young lad banter in our pubs would result in the manager or the landlord of that pub having to ban you because he's scared of being sued by the staff for third-party harassment, which was not clearly defined and very ambiguous. And that needs to be sorted as well. Policies to think about pubs and these industries as well. And I also want to bring planning law reform, especially for pubs like the Crooked House. When building, such as the Crooked House, is being applied to be listed, they should receive an interim protection as if they were a listed building until that application get processed. If you deny it, then it will not be protected. If they approve it, then they will be protected as of other listed buildings. But during that gap of period, to prevent houses like the Cricket House from being burnt down, a local resident should be able to apply for an interim protection during that time.
Sure. Yeah, an agreement. As we know, all of the legality of public houses, it's a very strenuous, tiring task. And it appears that more and more complex laws are just being sort of added on to this huge stockpile that the current government and people have to deal with. Of course, it's not only the government having to take the strain; it's also the citizens, the drinkers, the landlords and owners of these pubs. And in fact, late last year, the Labour government floated a ban on smoking in pub gardens. But as with the typical Labour fashion we've seen, they quickly used after all the backlash.
I'm very proud to be one of the people who advocated against it, knowing the fact that it will be catastrophic for pubs, because people do want to have a fag in smoke in a pub garden. People do want to have a cigarette in a pub garden.
Of course they do. Yes, I mean
it's a great place for people to have it. It's a great place for people to have it when it's at night, especially.
It happens, So, what does this episode exactly tell you about the government's understanding, really, of pub culture, and I guess their vulnerability, really, to public pressure? What does that tell you, sort of, not only in this scenario with the pubs, but also sort of as a whole? Their current job at the moment. Their understanding of public culture in both the UK and just in your local.
Well,
what would you say?
I think the government is not in touch with the people enough. That policy being proposed itself is a completely out of touch policies. I doubt they've ever been to a pub garden at night and really have a smoke with the people in the pub gardens, and they will know that it's a brilliant place that people have a smoke on. I think that
it's a bringing of community.
Well, I think they're out of touch with the real community. At least they're not in touch enough at the time. At least, and by proposing that,
the working class activity, I suppose.
Well, I would agree, and
not in a negative nor a positive, like just sort of how it is, a working class activity. Which then I see how some members of the government may not be able to relate and integrate themselves into.
If you go to my local pub, if the Prime Minister wants to go to my local pub, which I would love to show him around, he will see more people having great fun smoking in the pub garden. And the fact that policy is being proposed is evidence of them not being in touch with the people enough. That policy came as a leak, but we all know what government leaks are like. It's already in proposal, and when they U-turned it, I think they have rightly listened to the people's voices. They have overturned their policy that they haven't technically proposed yet, because they have listened to the sheer public pressure about it. And really, it will not make such a difference on public health. I think a sensible decision to make. I don't think that means they are susceptible to public influences. They rightly listen to the public. That's why the Downing Street leaks are for. They are to listen. They're for gathering the people's opinion on these leaked policies, and then they can fix it, and they have fixed it, and that's a good thing.
On the matter of being out of touch, your party leader Kemi Badenoch, many have labelled her as out of touch, out of depth, perhaps. As she struggled in the polls since becoming leader. What do you make of it?
Well, I profoundly disagree with on her opinion on sandwiches. I think is outrageous. I think is utterly unacceptable, and I must criticize her for being also a little bit out of touch. But I know that she had worked in many fields. She had worked in finance. I believe she worked as a McDonald's worker. She have a great live experience. I don't think she herself is out of touch. I don't think her colleagues are out of touch. but perhaps she would be. She will not be able to come with me to my local pub, and nor would she be able to go to pubs like the pub I'm in now, called the old leathered hotel. Oh no, bottle. I've no idea what that's it. How to pronounce it. Nor would she be able to come to the pub like I'm now. I think she knows what the party should go to. She knows what the British people want, and she has successfully put the pressure as the leader of the opposition into the government and forcing them to do U-turns that they should be doing.
What about Keir Starmer? He's a year into his premiership. Could he come to your local pub and relate?
I think I would gladly do that. I don't think he can either. But if he walks in, I'm going to say hi to him, and I'll probably down a pint with him together. I'm going to buy him a Guinness, or whatever he likes. I'm going to buy him a pint.
Quick question: what do you reckon would be his pint of choice?
Well, I
Do you
don't
think
think
he just go for like a bottle of Smirnoff Ice? What do you reckon?
I don't think it is beer. It's either an ale, which will be similar to mine, or it's a cider. I think he cider.
Pint of fruit shoot. Don't know. Vimto.
I really think Labour politicians would go for a cider instead of a beer.
You reckon?
Just vibes. It's nothing against. I'm not calling them gay. It's nothing. It's entirely vibe based. So I think they are like cider people. They're, especially when cider are red. You get that color scheme going on. Yeah, cider is crisp. It's quite refreshing. I think that's the image that.
Especially on tap. Yeah, when you go straight from the top of the barrel, it's absolutely golden.
Yes. I love it. Anyway, what I was saying is, politicians often can't be in touch with local people, and that's understandable.
Yeah.
And government, especially on their trying to propose smoking ban, have been especially out of touch with people. Is a level of how out of touch with people are you? And I think the government rightly listened to us by leaking it, and they gathered our voices, and they have reversed it quite rightly. And I think that should never be brought up on the cabinet table again. Okay, never again.
Let's just zoom out from all this. And the Conservative Party took a battering at the last general election. Why? What was the challenge facing them then, and what's the challenge facing them now? How can they regain it?
Well, I think the main reason of the Conservative Party losing is that I haven't started downing pints at that time of the general election. But more importantly, it is about, we had these 14 years in government. There are issues that we have not yet fixed, and there are massive conflict within our party internally. And the way we can fix it, you can't trust a party that doesn't trust itself. That's simply an election loser, I have to say, with that vigorous level of internal fractionalism and internal. It's not internal bleeding. A person can't stand with internal bleeding. So what we need to do is we need to fix the fabric within our party, agree on a set of policies by the democracy of our members to remove that hostility amongst different fractions of the Conservative Party. That's what the conference this year will be doing, and I'm looking forward to seeing news from the conference. How would that mean to our policy-making processes, and how that would mean to make policies that we can more party members can agree on, and more fractions of the party can agree on. Second is we need a comprehensive, workable, and affordable plan to fix the problems in our country, and that is the issues that we promised to fix, especially on immigration, on economy, and on national service, on education. We have a brilliant record in education, and is an evidence of how a decade of good policies adding up and investments adding up can do to our schools. Education in England is objectively improving. People are reading better. People are doing maths better. there is of course imperfect. We still have teachers' strikes at the Conservative Party government, but objectively, students are doing better, and more schools are good and outstanding now, including I used to study in a school that when I was there was a need improvement, and 2 years after I graduated, that became a good school. Same as the school opposite of that road, which is very good reputation, and that school always have the old school always have a bad reputation. It means that schools and governments can work together with investment, with good policies to improve the students' outcome, and that's what conservative is about, to have that aspiration and have that meritocracy going on, and that should apply to the entire society as well, by building more houses so younger people can work hard and get onto the housing ladder, genuinely get onto the housing ladder, and become homeowners, since they can start a family, whatever family that is, which and they can be supported in that doing so. It's also about the national service with that aspirational culture, with that meritocratic culture in our country, in that system. We are able to increase our economy, rise our GDP, and therefore use these economic growth to fund our social welfare, which is going back into that circle of improving our society. So that is the plan that Conservatives should provide: a comprehensive, workable, affordable plan that's long-term, and a plan that we can stick to, and not just turning around and around and around, just not rhetorics, but a natural plan that can work.
You touched on factionalism, and of course that was a driver. I agree with you 100%. That was a driver of the Tory loss. However,
yes,
factionalism has bred a sort of new party. It's not a new party, but it's bred into a new party, Reform. Conservatives did lose a large chunk of their support to Reform. Many constituencies which were once Conservative, they were always placing second or first, they came down to third and fourth because of Reform. What's your take on that?
I think it's no one owes us any votes, so I'm not going to condemn the Reform vote, saying if you would have voted for us, Labour would never have got in. Even if that's true, if they have voted for us, we'll have kept many seats, and Labour will not have a majority. I can only assume that's the case. But the people who have voted otherwise, the people who have voted for Reform, they have voted for Reform at not just the last general election, but also the last local election. Reform have gained significant number of influence. They have gained massive amount of members, and they are also building up their policy platform. As a party, what we need to do is to regain the trust of people who have went on to voting Reform, but not only that, there are also members who have went on to vote for the Liberal Democrats and Labour. How are we going to gain those voters back? How are we going to gain our members back into our membership count? Is by creating a serious, optimistic, workable, and long-term plan that we can afford and we can stick to. And that's something I want. Coming out of this conference, I want the plan to be going on. So I can tell the people around me, whether in our pub crawl, whether it is in my campaigning during elections, that this is our plan for the country. And this is the plan that we can stick to. And please vote for us. And we are no longer going to, so we're going to rebuild the party from scratch. We have been taking a great hit at the last general election, and we need to rebuild it step by step. And that is an important part of what we are going to rebuild. Not just our reputation, but the fundamental of the party and how we see the country as a whole and how we see our part in making the country better.
I think part of those steps to rebuilding trust is transparency. And
yes.
What are the certain truths? There's always some truths that you think the Conservative Party isn't saying, but you could say. What are the uncomfortable truths about Britain in 2025 that you feel the Conservative Party is a bit too afraid to say?
Well, there's many different problems. There is a problem of the pension bomb. Many economists are already saying that, but I think we are too scared because we deeply rely on pensioners. And it's right, but pensioners deserve to receive a good pension payout. They deserve, because they have been working so hard for their life. Some of them may not have children or daughters, or son or daughters, or grandson and granddaughters to work and supply for them. Therefore, we have the state pension system. We also have private pension pots that are funded by, that also subsidized by the state, or what. I'm not really sure about that part. But the states spend a large amount of welfare money into pension, and that number is going to increase as we become an aging population. That is a problem, and that's something that we need to think about in order to balance the book. There's a question of welfare. I think Kemi is already highlighting her support to the two-child benefit cap and the need to balance the books on the welfare as well, because we're simply spending too much on welfare, and some people are getting too much, or some people are getting too little. It doesn't need spending less. Not only needs spending less, it also needs to be spending fairer. We need to be spending the fair amount of money, not less amount of money, not just less amount.
And on that point, balancing the books.
Yes.
We made this agenda questions a few weeks ago, but just this morning I was watching TV, and I put on Gary Stevenson, economist. Some people are against him, some people love him. Anyway, I was just watching him, and his whole thing is wealth tax. And we've seen through some leaked memos, one of those Downing Street leaked memos, that perhaps Rachel Reeves may be considering it for the autumn budget, a wealth tax, or maybe a property tax. What's your thoughts on that one?
See, if you can. That the problem is here. You can be living as a middle class family or middle class person, but you somehow hold a house in the middle of nowhere that was passed down from your great granddad, who have built the house from prehistorical times. It's a hypothetical situation, but it happens. Old times buildings became very valuable. Old times items become very valuable. Some land become very valuable, and you can't sell it. You not only can you because of the legal ambiguity, because they're listed or whatever, is also because you don't want to sell it. You live in it. You could live in a million worth house and get a medium paid job.
What about the Duke of Westminster? He has £10 billion worth of property. Should he not be taxed on that huge amount of wealth?
The problem is this: I'm not responsible for the budget.
Yeah, of course.
Obviously, people who are richer should pay their fair share. That's always been the principle of why taxes exist.
That's a given. Really.
More well off the players a bit more than people who are less at wealth, and that's fine. I'm not a radical libertarian who wants zero taxes. I'm not anarchist capitalist. I think taxes are good. I think taxes are necessary, and but we need to do it responsibly. But the wealth tax I have a concern is that they have to address, not me. They have to address the concern is that whether middle class or even people of completely normal living conditions will be facing a hit simply because they are living in a very old building that somehow cost a lot.
That's a very good answer.
And
it's rare.
For them to consider, not for me. So they have to answer that in front of the House and answer many people like myself who are concerned about their hits, not just to hypothetical situations like what I highlighted, but also to savers, but also to collectors, but also to those who hold very expensive stuff, but rely on them to live in or as their interest. They shouldn't be forced to pay a lot of money just because I collect stamps or old coins in my home. Those are my property, yes, but I'm not selling them. They have been passed down from my great grandpa, and I'm gonna keep them. I'm not going to sell them. I'm living a normal life. I'm not those super rich. Why should I be paying much more in taxes than the person without these connections will have to pay? And those are the questions that they will have to answer in the House. And whenever they put on their autumn budget, which I would putting my close eye to. I hope that will be something for them to really need to answer. And I hope Rachel Reeves is already working at her desk, typing and researching how to sort this out.
Fingers crossed. Yes. Now, moving on, shifting the topic a little bit. As we all know, the power of social media, it cannot be. It cannot be. I want to say overestimated or underestimated, but my brain's in a bit of a muddle, I'm afraid.
Because you don't have a pint.
Yeah, well, you should.
Oh yeah, exactly. Just fill it all out. I'm just going to say social media is very important and
More powerful.
that cannot be understated, right? It has a profound effect on all of our lives as individual citizens, as well as the power of collective parties. And in fact, your very own campaign has gained significant traction on platforms such as TikTok and X. That's Twitter for any normal people watching this. How has social media changed the game, though? Exactly. It has had, a very significant impact, as we can see. But
Yes.
how exactly?
Yeah.
And is there a danger behind it as well? Would you say? Does it encourage, say, style over substance? What's your verdict?
All pieces of media, starting from words on muddy streets from the prehistoric times to printed media. I studied who invented printed media in the UK. I forgot. In Britain, I forgot his name. But to printed media,
Artin,
to TV, to radio, to TV, and now to our phones, to the internet, to the great social media platforms, they all have take the same impact of using words, images, sounds, videos into informing people, affecting how they act, and shaping the culture of the society.
Yeah, precisely. People sort of see with their eyes and don't really listen.
From the earliest printed press, the Bible, have shaped the face of the culture of our society, the entire Western world, and the entire world actually. To now social media, they are all carrying their risk and all carrying their opportunities. They're simply different. I think it is important that we do not recognize social media as something entirely new. Style matters all the time. Since people start drawing out pictures and paintings of people, the rich already start wearing these fancy high heel things I cannot even name now. To now, with the TV, politicians are criticized for wearing a spotted blue tie or just eating a bacon sandwich. Style always matters.
Yeah, the bacon sandwich. I think I reckon.
Bacon sandwich, no.
In my mind, the exact thing you're talking about.
Yes.
The bacon sandwich.
I love bacon sandwich. I'm going to recreate that video when I go to London next time. But
yes, precisely.
Yeah, anyway, not everyone can receive a new copy of The Sun or of the Daily Mail every 10 seconds, but we can on TikTok, Instagram. Not everyone can be informed of something truthfully or less truthfully by an article on The Sun or the Daily Telegraph or the Daily Mail by just 10 seconds. Now we can on TikTok. Not everyone can see live me downing a pint on The Sun or the Daily Telegraph, but now they can on TikTok and Instagram. They simply accelerated the speed of information going through between us, and therefore the culture of that platform is shaped by our circumstances, and our circumstances are shaped more by the content on social media. In the same way, our behavior, we're also shaped by what we hear from the radio and the TV and the press. And what's being reported on them also strongly correlates to what we are living at the time and what our public mood is, our public culture is. It simply accelerated that process one way to another. And it's not an entirely new concept. So I'm not worried about social media. It's not a new thing. And we should have the same awareness as we have for printed press, for TV press and radio press.
Yeah, that's on.
Speaking of new things,
It's like how
there are misinformation on the press.
Yeah.
On the press information.
it's like how it's like how energy can't
will.
be more created. It's sort of it is, it should be
Nothing ever
taken with the same
changes.
regard.
That's the story.
It should be taken with
That
the
is-
same regard as printed newspapers and TV outlets. It's the exact same thing, just in a different form. You just,
quicker.
but you still need to adapt, of course. You still need to
comes from
change your view a little, but it's the same. It's feeding you the same stuff,
yes, and it's simply quicker. And our awareness to information, our awareness to the violence and illegal content on these media, or on new media, should be the same as we would have our awareness on old media, just a bit more and a bit quicker.
Yeah.
So we need to react quicker.
Speaking of new things,
Remember, nothing ever happens.
yeah, nothing
actually,
ever happens.
Things only change. They never fundamentally change. They never change as a concept. They're still the same thing, but they're just in a different form.
Speaking
It's like
of changes, speaking of old media, am I right in saying you appeared on GB News?
yes, twice,
Okay.
3 times.
And GB News is how could I put this? It's on the writer scale of sort of traditional media.
Partial, but yes, they are on the right side of pod.
And more and more, things, as you said, don't fundamentally change. But we have seen new media coming, new very good media. But people seem divided and more fragmented. We've seen it sort of in America where people are getting more divided, and unfortunately, it's sort of a little bug that's been coming over the pond. Is there any point in trying to reach across the aisle anymore, or just preach to similar? Yeah. So, as in, like, Conservatives trying to win reform instead of going over the aisle to Labour.
Well, it's always. It doesn't really happen. Not just happen on media. It's not caused by media. It just accelerates the whole process. People get divided. In the olden days of printed press, all these printed things on the letter can make people angry. In the same way, on social media content. Yes, social media accelerates that process, and it's something that we need to be aware of. Yes, social media makes division more, and indeed misinformation and misconception more easier to spread. They make the isolation of information, what we call a echo chamber, more easier to form than what we would do on the printed media. But they're the same thing. And the thing that we need to tackle is how we can get people in real life to be less divided, and that is to form a new political force. Not a new party, but a new political force on our social media at this time. And that force is to unite people and to form a dialogue between different people. And that's where the podcasters like yourself comes to do an important job. I've known many great podcasters who have invited me, my other right-wing thinkers, left-wing thinkers, and even socialists and communists onto the screen. And that's an important thing because we can learn about our information. That's why I have always been very welcomed into learning about the views of the other three parties. And I have learned about them. I stand in what I believe, but what's something that I would never do also is to dismiss other people's legitimate and real concerns and to dismiss them into overgeneralized simple buzzwords like reforms are racist, or a Labour are useless, Lib Dems are femboys. I would. Maybe
well, they are, but I mean, that's beside the point.
Oh no.
Maybe it's Lib Dem parts. I would never use overgeneralized terms to dismiss everyone who have a similar views to aligning to these institutions. What I believe in is honest, open, and genuinely well-hearted debate on what issues are our country facing and how can we fix them. And we need to be realistic. And that's where realism comes in. And the real dialogue between different people holding different views should really be important. And I'm very glad to see More in Common, as well as there's a few American charities doing the same job, and I hope that they can shape the scene of social media.
Lovely. Yeah. Jay, looking ahead 5 years, What's, you said things don't fundamentally change, but they do change on a sort of, flowy level.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. How do you think political messaging will change? I truly believe you're a great political messenger. You're a great political messenger. But
I done Chicken Jockey versus Birmingham Labour. I done Skibbity Starmer.
Lovely.
KSI version of I'm pretty brave. I'm sort of the messenger guy to the edgier bit of politics. So like the less political bit that people think, what are they watching?
Yeah. Do you think
I thought that
things will change into a more personality driven sort of campaign like yours, or will they go back to sort of the traditional Blair era policy Blair. Competency message?
Blair is also a very heavily personal campaign. Every political campaign are greatly personal. A personality. I love Blair. Many people love Blair's personality. It's good to have a good impression, and I can't agree with you that our political campaigning in the future would completely take away what the policies are and simply focus on personalities of different people, especially when there isn't much to say about personalities, and you still can't convince voters to vote for you just because you got a good hair or you have a good voice.
How about Trump?
Have one intern, we'll have one immediately. But the important bit is we are still able to convey our policy ideas, not just of my party, but also for the other parties, and convince our voters why ours better than theirs. Not just by printed leaflets and the boring rhetorics and the party political broadcasts. That anyone watch party political broadcasts still? No one does that. No one watches them. So we use that in a shorter, more segmented, more clearer messaging, I would say, into the age of the new media, and adapting to that is a good thing.
Well, what about Trump though? Isn't he a very personality-driven campaign?
Trump would also spread hateful rhetoric on the paper if he was to run the 19th century. He would use these wacky typewriters into typing hateful rhetoric. Things never happens. It only increases in speed and scale. It never changes in principle. It's still the same thing. And hateful politicians will always spread hate on social media as if they were running in the 19th century, spreading on their keyboard of whatever ding ding dong dong thing they have to type on that paper for. They will still spread hateful rhetorics in the Renaissance by drawing the Reform Nisa or the MAGA Lisa. Who knows?
Yeah.
They will always have that division going on in our society. Things only changes in scales and speed, or when it comes to media and how we receive information. And it's important that we moderate ourselves, really, that we use some moderation into finding a balance between eye-catching, in between clickbaiting, in between rage baiting, perhaps, and to serious politics. And, calling your opposite politician, comparing them to skibbity toilets is fun and gay, but using social media to call for violence and death against them, or put their face onto attack their families, attack their friends, attack their personal life, or shame them would be less fun and game. I think it's only when we think the balance between that, and there's a very thin line between it. Things only change in speed and scale, and it will only be new forms of thinking.
Exactly.
Yeah. Last question for me, Jay. Before we get to Thomas's very creative question. Imagine you're at a bar or a pub, like just as you are right now. There's one guy left. There's one person left. They're in their 20s, never voted, and they think politics is a corrupt, pointless game, and you have 30 seconds before they walk out the door forever and never vote. What would you say to them?
I'll probably ask him out. He's in his 20s, so he's also in a pub, so I'll probably ask him out. That'll be the first thing I'm going to do. But if I was a canvasser and not, I would what I would say to him is, if there's an election going on, I want to open my conversation as if, how's your day? And I want to make sure he knows how politics affects his life. How's your day? My bus got delayed. That's about our local politics. My bin didn't get collected today. That's about our local politics. My taxes are a bit too high. I can't feed my. I can't buy that new clothes I really wanted because I have to pay the taxes and I have to spend all the time on these things. That's national politics. I'm really poor. I'm really struggling. I'm not getting the right support that I need. That's also politics. And every aspect of politics affects me, affect yourself, affect your family, affect my family and my friends and pubs that I'm sitting in right now. And what needs to be done is people know if you don't care about politics, politics still cares about you and affects you in every aspect of your life. And it's important that you are informed, not just informed, but also play a part in deciding what right in politics to happen, what policy to support, what policy do you want the politicians to implement with your voice. And perhaps to get him more eye-catching, I would use the old trick of downing a pint, inviting him to down a pipe for me, and try to feed him more and more political rhetoric and get him to vote when he's drunk and when we're both drunk, perhaps. And then I'll ask him out. There we go.
Lovely.
That's full plan done.
Lovely. Thomas, so your creative and very controversial question.
Final step. Yes. This is, yeah, so we'll define your career. I believe this is the pinnacle of it, right? So I have no pressure, but, the fate of your political career literally depends on how you answer this question. So here's the final lighter question on your tour. Now, you don't have to name any names, but which pub so far has been your absolute favourite and why?
Well, I would say it's Tamworth Tap. Not only because the staff are very kind, also I got a good reception from the pub goers, and also it's a lovely pub with so much different things in the pub happening. It's just quite fascinating. There's a castle at the pub garden, so it's a castle you can see up from the pub garden. The pub itself is very old. Have the great scenery over there, very good music, have very good people. It's in a very good town. So that's why they got rated pub of the year for 2003 and 2022. Yes, that's good. And another one is in North Shropshire, which I haven't been to yet, but I will. And that probably will change my list a little bit. But I also really like the micro pubs where I got very good reception. I got very good meet very good people as well. I've loved nearly that one.
North Shropshire. In North Shropshire? What's the one in Shropshire?
Yeah, there's one in Shropshire. It's called Pub 2024. I forgot what its name is. It's in a small town.
You can send this to us later, and the editors will put on screen.
I'll send it to him.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. You saved your political career there. You really did. We put you in a bad spot, but it looks like you made your way out, and yeah, that's a cut.